would you raise your hand? Thank you. Good morning, everyone. We'll be starting in a few minutes, but I just want to let the attendees know that if you're interested in speaking in the public forum, to please use the raise your hand feature and we will call on you. Thank you.
Shall we go ahead and get started?
Sounds good.
Yes.
Brent, are you going to change the slide? Thank you. I'd like to begin this morning by welcoming everyone. I'm Linda Simmons, and I'm the TriMet Board President. For those of you who are our viewers, I want to welcome you as well as the board to the TriMet Board of Directors meeting for January 26, 2022. And as usual, we're going to start with the public forum. And for our viewers, the public forum provides an opportunity for the community to provide your thoughts, concerns, or feedback about TriMet and our service. As was indicated before the meeting started, if you wish to provide comment, you only need to sign up and virtually raise your hand. And when it's your turn, you'll be called on to testify. We ask that when you speak, you limit your comments to 3 minutes. And if you don't have time to present all your material, you can email it to us, and an email link will be provided to you. So let's begin, and I'll ask Kim Angove to invite our first speaker to speak.
Good morning, President Simmons. We have 3 speakers today. We're going to begin with Kathy Tuttle, followed by Serenity Ebert and Thomas Craig.
Welcome, Kathy.
And I'm sorry, it appears I'm having an issue unmuting. Brent, can you please unmute Kathy Tuttle, please?
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you very much. And thank you, commissioners. My name is Kathy Tuttle. I'm a city and a community planner, and I'm on sabbatical this year in Portland. I'm testifying today to support the disabled community and their access to TriMet services. 3 years ago, I spent a few weeks working in the city of Pontevedra, Spain. I'm lucky where my consulting work takes me. And I was walking around town there with the commissioner of police, and I asked him why the city had so many people using wheelchairs and mobility scooters. He said that visitors often asked him that question. He said, "We have the same number of other abled people as any city, but here, all people can easily use our public spaces." So I want to see all people in the TriMet region too. And I believe TriMet is failing to provide equitable mobility at this time. You can choose to improve access with a simple policy and hardware update. Right now, TriMet rules do not allow anything but a very narrow range of mobility devices on trains: small, lightweight bicycles, walkers, and wheelchairs. And yet people with all kinds of disabilities use all kinds of mobility devices. I trust that the TriMet board will address the inequality of service and allow this variety of mobility device, trikes and scooters in the short term, smaller vehicles, but still vehicles that people use to get around. These vehicles should be welcomed on TriMet trains now. And in the longer term, I hope that some TriMet trains can be reconfigured with more open floor plans and tie-down areas to allow all kinds of people to regularly use the TriMet trains. I know that you want to be in the business as board members of providing equitable and reliable service to all transit users. And thank you very much for your work on the board. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate your testimony. Next presenter.
The next presenter this morning is Serenity Ebert.
Welcome, Serenity.
Okay, thank you, directors. Good morning. My name
morning.
is
Yes, good morning.
I'm sorry, what?
I just said good morning.
Oh, good morning. My name is Serenity Ebert. I'm the vice chair of BikeCloud, a member of the Civil Unrest Bicycle Club, and a resident of downtown Portland. TriMet, you have failed me. I feel that you continue not to see me. Portland has gone through many changes, but a few things have remained constant. Number one, Portland has always prided itself on being a cycling-friendly city. It was famous for its cycling infrastructure. As a disabled cyclist, that is one of the reasons I moved here 13 years ago. Number two, Portland prides itself on being a progressive city. I have been disappointed on both counts. Whereas my fellow cyclists can combine bike trips with transit when they can't safely ride somewhere. I have been barred from the same option. I demand the transit options promised to me by the ADA. If the issue is really that my trike is too big or poses a direct threat, as you said in your denial of my 2017 application, that could be remedied by modifying or reconfiguring a few existing cars. Remove a few of the seats and provide tie-down points to safely accommodate a wide variety of devices. In the meantime, just let me on with my trike. If the issue is simply that I could use my walker instead, as you said in your denial of my 2018 reasonable modification request, I point to your unwavering commitment to civil rights referred to in your 2019 Title VI program update. Thank you.
Thank you, Serenity. And it's customary that the board doesn't respond to the community members when they address the board. However, there's a number of individuals who are concerned about this topic, and I'll ask that the general manager address it in his general manager report. So you might want to stay online. Thank you. Kimberly?
Thank you, President Simmons. That concludes all of the public attendee forum this morning.
Okay, thank you. I'll go ahead and close the public comment period and open the business meeting. Before we begin with, and we usually start with board reports, but before we begin with board reports, I wanted to check with the directors to see if anyone has any time constraints today that would result in you needing to leave the meeting before we conclude. And I've heard from one person, and so you don't need to tell me about it. One person needs to conclude by 10 minutes to 12. Is there anyone else?
Director Simmons, I do have a stop at 12.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you so much. So we will want to try to get get through the meeting as expediently as possible, but also make sure we take care of all of TriMet's business.
President Simmons?
Uh-huh.
I apologize. This is Kimberly. Sorry for interrupting. I'm sorry. We actually do have one other person who had raised their hand for public testimony.
Okay.
We have Thomas Craig, who is joining us this morning. So Thomas, your microphone is now unmuted.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you, President Simmons. Thank you, other members of the TriMet board. I also want to start by thanking and applauding the testimony by Kathy and Serenity. Each brought up some excellent points, and I really appreciate them being here this morning and raising those issues. My name is Thomas Craig from zip code 97203 near Columbia Park, just off the 75. Lived within a mile of the 75 for more than 30 of my 36 years, growing up and living in Portland. My childhood home is on 38th Avenue, just a bit north of the Hollywood Transit Center. It is distressing to see the board consider today a $3.1 million contract to continue the Hollywood Transit Center remodeling project. There is broad community agreement outside of TriMet that this project is a bad idea, as currently conceived. There is a known mistake in the census block boundaries and related tax credit system that TriMet staff are aware of and not seeking to fix before moving forward, despite that mistake having grave consequences for the quality of the facility that can be built. There's not enough planned housing, and the planned pedestrian, bike, and wheelchair access infrastructure, as well as other mobility devices, does not meet the needs of the region's present or future. YIMBYs are against this project, NIMBYs are against it, transit advocates are against it, bike and ped advocates, equity and accessibility advocates. TriMet has done an impressive job of unifying opposition to this project. Unfortunately, a unified opposition is not what we need. We need TriMet to have a vision that unifies the community in favor of the agency's proposals. A vision of radically more bus service that provides better access to all riders, a vision of more accessible trains, buses, a vision of better accessible pedestrian grid in collaboration with the cities, counties of the region, and Metro, ODOT, and other stakeholders, and a TriMet that promotes that vision actively and intently on the regional stage and asks us all to do better for our community. Please speak up today and ask the TriMet staff to go back to the drawing board, listen to community feedback, and ask that a new approach to Hollywood Transit Center and other future projects be proposed. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Okay. If that concludes the public comment, we'll now continue with moving into the board reports. Something that I'm going to do a little differently today is that we've tried to find a way for me to be able to see when board members raise their hand with comments or questions. And so when I ask for that, Kimberly Engove will be calling people as they raise their hand. The problem comes in with this platform of WebEx where I can't easily see all of the board members, so it creates a delay. So you'll hear Kimberly inviting you to speak, and so I do ask you to raise your hands. I know in the past I haven't been able to figure it out, and so I think that will make the meeting go a little bit quicker. So I'll begin with the board reports by first inviting Director Edwards to provide an, oh, is Director Edwards here? Kimberly, is Director Edwards here?
Hello, President Simmons. I know that Director Edwards was having issues logging in this morning.
Okay.
So I know we are working on it. I'm not seeing him in the panel right now, so Yar may still be helping him.
Well, then we will move on beyond Director Edwards, and should he be able to log in, I'm sorry to hear that, we will come back to him for his report on the Committee on Accessible Transportation. So we will move now into Vice President Irish Bauman has an update from the Finance and Audit Committee. Vice President Irish Bauman.
Yes, good morning. Can everybody hear me?
Mm-hmm.
All right, this is the report of Finance and Audit Committee, which met this morning. We had 3 items on the agenda. I'll briefly review them. The first one was an update on the POW garage, bus garage construction project. Steve Witter gave us a report. The board members know that there's currently a project going on right now to upgrade the POW bus garage. That facility has been in place since 1976 and has reached the end of its usable life. Some of the changes that are taking place now will include a facility for storing electric buses. Steve Witter let us know that since the project started, there have been some unforeseen conditions that have increased the cost, and those that include COVID delays, supply chain issues, permitting delays, costs associated with removing contaminated soils, and weather delays. As a result of these changes, there have been increased project costs. Those have used up the change order allowance. So I wanted to let the board know that next month there's going to be a request to the board to approve additional contract authority to replenish the change order allowance. And going back to the project itself, construction is 76% complete, and its completion is expected in December of this year. The second item on the agenda was the financial forecast update. We heard from New Brookshire, Nancy Oliver Young, and Michael Doan, and the report is that today the TriMet's financial performance continues to be positive. We're in a strong cash position due to the federal stimulus funds. Of course, as we know, ridership and fare revenue continue to be down. A series of assumptions were made in making 10-year projections, and so we heard a presentation about those assumptions. Included things like volatile diesel fuel costs and an assumption of fare increases every other year. We saw that the current forecast shows a budget shortfall in as early as fiscal year 2028 or 2029. That is actually an improvement over the last forecast that we saw a few months ago. Among other things, the payroll tax revenues have come in more strongly than anticipated, but I do want the board to know that this current 10-year forecast shows that in fiscal year 2030, the agency will need a boost of revenue of about $78 million in order to have a balanced budget. And the final item on the agenda was the plan to move the TriMet headquarters to One Main Place. We will be hearing more about that later in this meeting, and that is the report. I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Vice President Irish Bauman. Are there any questions or comments about the Finance and Audit Committee? Ozzie, you were there. I was there. So if you have some, raise your hand and Kimberly will call on you.
At this point, President Simmons, I do not see any raised hands.
Great. All right. Thank you. So next this morning, we're going to have an update from Director Kim on the Metro Policy Advisory Committee. Director Kim?
Yep. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I actually have no report because MPAC has not met since our last board meeting. And the next MPAC meeting is tonight at 5 p.m., where the agenda would include an ODOT presentation on I-205 tolling and a Metro presentation of the regional transportation plans, vision and outcomes. So I will be sure to report the content of these presentations at our next board meeting. Thank you.
I look forward to that. Thank you, Director Kim.
Thank you.
Next, we'll get an update from Director Lewis on the Reimagining Public Safety Committee.
Thank you, Director Simmons. You can hear me? Clear? Good. Thank you. So my report from the Reimagine Public Safety Advisory Committee. We've met twice since our last board meeting on December 16th and January 18th, and our meetings have been well attended by the committee members as well as our TriMet staff. The committee has a new facilitator. It's Jessica Stanton of Stanton Global Communications. We are really grateful for her expertise and her talents that she brings to our advisory committee in moving our discussions to be inclusive and equitable. At the December meeting, the committee was updated with Ordinance 364 and highlights of critical safety and security incidences in the system. That was back in December. Staff presented the results of our safety training, our training survey, which TIAC, CAT, and our committee members participated. And it was highlighted for staff engagement, a desire for, more training for staff in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and other strategies on riders that are youth, are young, elders, people with disabilities, riders that may be homeless, individuals experiencing mental health crisis. Also, staff was presented us with next steps on the scope of work for the micro training grant and the RFP for that. There were no public comments at our December meeting. In January, we were joined by the new Executive Director for Safety and Security, Andrew Wilson. We welcomed him to our committee and we're really delighted to have him on board. His department will be attending monthly. Staff was also provided the committee members with a detailed walkthrough of the base mini training grant RFP, which will award grants of up to $10,000 for community-based experts, leaders, and service providers to produce new training for our frontline staff. A draft of this RFP is available before it's finalized, and any of the board members that like to see a copy, just go ahead and let John Garner know. Jessica also led a couple of robust discussions with targeted questions at the advisory group that leaned us into the RFP work, such as supporting writers from the many specific writer groups, enhanced engagements that will include de-escalation, trauma-informed responses, and resource referral approaches. And then lastly, any enhanced community-informed DEI training. These discussions around the RFP will be ongoing, coming up for our February meeting, and we'll finalize the RFP shortly thereafter. To help inform our work, staff also was provided with collaborative work from other TriMet systems around the nation, which actually are in the process of doing work that is similar to what we are doing in our Reimagine group. Let's see, next in our advisory, we are starting the work on the crisis responsive intervention model. And this is going to be a little ongoing for a while, probably to June and July. This work will be led by Leah Debrin from the Multnomah County Health Department, who will be leading the research. And she will be also joining our team monthly. She provided our committee with update on her efforts in her first month. She was really going at it there, which included stakeholder outreach. She also did some information gathering and observations with the transit police and the customer safety team, and did some data tracking with TriMet and the sheriff's office. She also shared the general manager's initial timeline goals for getting this work done for the crisis intervention model before June, probably July. Committee members were also asked to add any additional organizations and other information to this work. There were no public comments at our January meeting, and our next meeting is February 15th. Lots of work. Good work. That concludes my report. Any questions, comments, feedback?
If you wouldn't mind raising your hand, that would be great.
And I'm seeing no hands raised at this time.
I just want to thank you, Laverne. I mean, that was a very comprehensive report, and I've been so anxious to find out how this work is moving forward, and I'm glad to hear about the progress that's being made.
Thank you.
Couldn't happen soon enough, so thank you so much. For our next report, we will look to Director Way for an update from the Transit Equity Advisory Committee. Director Way.
Thank you, President Simmons. It's hard to follow Dr. Lewis, I will just say, but I will try my best. So TIAC met on January 11th, and so I'll start with some staff updates first. We received an update from the Division Transit Project. They held its first shelter lighting test, And this is really great news. I know that we've been talking a lot about partnerships with OHA to really curb the pandemic. And so free transit fare to and from vaccination sites have been, we've been offering that through a partnership with the Oregon Health Authority. And to date, over 43,000 fares have been provided through this partnership. And it's really accessing the community-based organizations to really get folks from point A to point B to the critical vaccination sites. So very impressive work there. As many of you know, we are also celebrating Rosa Parks Transit Equity Day on February 4th. That resolution passed a couple of years ago. So again, this is a yearly commemoration to offer just a recognition for an amazing civil rights leader, and no fares will be collected that day. And I believe there will also be various community events around transit that are being organized by different groups. TriMet.org is also, I believe, is getting an update or had an update effective January 19th. The homepage will be upgraded with new map-based versions of the trip planner and the transit tracker. And we also watched a Celebrating 2021 video, just really, recapping some of the accomplishments and highlights of 2021 and really looking ahead into 2022. And then after the updates, we also was introduced the Comprehensive Service Analysis Project, and it really sort of helped us kick off this amazing project that we're doing called the Forward Together Project. So the staff also outlined their vision for continuing planned community engagement for 2022. And really discuss some opportunities to partner with TIAC members for coordinated efforts to engage with folks in spaces where meetings are already taking place. This suggestion generated additional ideas for engaging cohorts and leadership programs to provide opportunities for hands-on projects and community engagement. So again, not just talking about community engagement, but really doing that work on the ground and partnering up with community-based organizations who already have civic programs that work towards leadership development. So there's ongoing discussions on how we can also include high school students or those in post-secondary education credits to engage with us on this leadership initiative that we're doing. And then staff also outlined the second round of focused community outreach for fiscal year 2023 proposals, and continuing the direct efforts to the top 5 languages spoken on the 2 bus lines impacted, line 2 and line 10. So again, this is all under the comprehensive service analysis and the outreach work. And as Director Lewis mentioned, we also heard from Leah Durbin from Multnomah County around their work on the crisis intervention team. So I'm sure we will be hearing a lot more about how that partnership is going with the county and the Reimagine Public Safety Project. And then last but not least, we heard an amazing presentation. I think everybody needs to learn about this effort, but it is by Afro Village PDX, and they are a movement. So they're creating a movement of reimagining trains. So our MAX trains to provide shelter spaces, mini kitchens, and dining areas, and more. So this is just an amazing project. I wish I had a visual, but the website is Afro Village PDX. And again, it is a project that was started by Laquita Lanford and Marta Pettini. Hope I'm saying that right. They really sort of outlined their vision and their partnership of really just what a reused MAX train can look like in the community if it was to be repurposed. So we saw the designs and it was just amazing. And this work was possible by Metro's placemaking grants and PSEF planning grant. And the next steps is to identify a site to be moved for the trains, and that might be summer and fall 2022. So hopefully the board can do a site visit and check out this really exciting project. And that is all I have for TIAC.
Thank you. I remember in past meetings where TriMet has offered some of our some of our light rail that we're not planning to use. So I'm glad to know that there's an organization moving forward to do that. I think that's marvelous. Thank you, Kathy. Are there any comments or questions for Kathy?
I'm not seeing any hands raised at this time.
Okay, so now we will go back to Director Edwards. And welcome, Director Edwards. I'm sorry that you're having some technology issues. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you just fine. I hope you can hear me.
We can, and I'd like to invite you to provide an update on the latest meeting of the Committee on Accessible Transportation. Go ahead, Director
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. The meeting was called to order on January 19th by Jan Campbell. And as anticipated, there are currently temporary service reductions that have impacted everyone, including Lyft and the associated services. However, Lyft is now operating 24/7, so that's a good thing. And it was reported also that vaccinations are on the increase, which also will help increase the service overall. We have a CAP member that attends the Multnomah County Age and Disability Services as a liaison between, CAT and Multnomah County. And they're trying to address concerns that impact ridership as well, such as individuals that are on fixed incomes, and that's not typically viewed as a disability, but it certainly is. And also, with those folks that have those challenges, sometimes they have to choose between transportation and food. There are also individuals with cognitive decline, and that issue has been really at the forefront lately, because it is a real issue that impacts our riders, and it's hard to discern oftentimes, what the issue particularly is. The cognitive concerns, as well as non-internet accessibility, was addressed also during public comment. Safety and security report from Pat Williams. In some areas there, such as Beaverton, which was mentioned specifically, there are no mobility charger plug-ins for those that have the cycles or the bikes that are used for those with disabilities in order to get around. And in response to the staff reductions, incentives have been offered, which have increased the application process and then increased applications period. And that's been a boost to safety and security as well. One of the major challenges, of course, that the safety and security have is identifying mental disabilities. And that's a huge challenge because as I just found out recently, there are nearly 300 different mental disabilities that human beings have, and you can imagine how difficult it would be to try to identify that. It's not like a physical disability, which is usually readily apparent. We also got a report from PBOT. April Bertelson and Gina Discaldi were there, and they shared that they have some temporary platforms that are being used, and there are two types. There's one type is rubber, and the other type is asphalt. And they're located at currently 10 different locations in the city. There are 5 asphalt that are on one on Southeast Washington, Stark. There's 4 of them on Stark, one on 82nd, one on 90th, and one on 94th Avenue, and there's one on 105th Avenue. And in the spring, there's going to be 2 more that'll be added, 2 on Southeast Alder, 1 at 6th Avenue, and 1 at 10th Avenue. And then we have the rubber modular temporary platforms that are located in Northwest 18th and Flanders. There's another one on Northwest 19th and Flanders. And there's one on Southeast Hawthorne at 6th, one on 12th and Hawthorne, and there's one on Northwest Broadway and Cooch. There's a survey regarding these platforms because they definitely need feedback, and they were going to close the survey on the 27th of this month. However, because I think we raised the concern and issue at the CAP meeting, they've extended that to February 13th. So we still need to make sure that that information gets out. In order to respond to that survey, you have to go to www.surveymonkey.com/r/bus platform. And that information, once you go there, then you're able to put in information regarding that survey. And this is critical information. That's the reason we asked them to extend it, simply because they hadn't gotten a lot of responses, and folks need to respond because there are really some major concerns in the, even though they're designed, according to need and purpose, there are many concerns that were raised during the CAP meeting that that need to get back to PBOT so they can modify those temporary those platforms so that they'll become more accessible and more just work better for those with disabilities and for the general public as well. One of the issues that was raised is that the transition to from curb to the sidewalk is very challenging, and especially on the rubber modular ramps. That pretty much completes my report, and I have not received the minutes from the December meeting, but I will get those and I will submit a written report to Kimberly.
Okay. Thank you, Director Edwards. I know that the board has received a letter from Chris Walker having to do with also issues between, the cab responsiveness, and possibly the general manager will make a comment about that during his report. So are there any comments or questions for Director Edwards?
I'm not seeing any hands raised at this time.
Thank you, Kimberly. So then now we will move on to the general manager's monthly report. General Manager DeSue, hopefully I didn't make your report more difficult because I've added some things to it.
Well, good morning, President Simmons and members of the board, staff, and the public. Thank you for being here with us today. This morning, we will be sharing timely information on a couple of things. One, introducing to you two of our newest members of TriMet Executive Leadership Team. We will bring you up to speed on our COVID-19 response. I will briefly review our December ridership. We will preview the second annual Rosa Parks Day coming up next week. We will give an update on temporary service reductions that began earlier this month. And then we will share with you a big milestone for our electronic fare system, our HOP Fast Pass. And then finally, we will take you on a tour of our new and improved TriMet.org website. So let me start off by saying that we are fortunate to begin 2022 with two new members of our executive leadership team. So please join me in welcoming Bonnie Todd as our TriMet's Chief Operating Officer and Andrew Wilson as TriMet's Executive Director of Safety and Security. So let me talk a little bit about Bonnie first. Bonnie hit the ground running back on December 30th and has now been with us a whole whopping 28 days. She brings more than 30 years of transportation industry experience to the role with perspectives from both the East and West Coast. Bonnie is exceptionally happy to be here at TriMet and back in the Pacific Northwest. She spent part of her career with Sound Transit up in Seattle as the Chief Operating Officer. Bonnie is also a United States Marine Corps veteran. So I just want to tell Bonnie, welcome aboard and thank you for being here with us. And if she's out there, she could just wave to the board so that they could see her face there. There she is. All right. I would also like to congratulate Andrew Wilson on his promotion to Executive Director of Safety and Security. Andrew has been with TriMet since 2016 and previously worked as the Director of Risk Management. Andrew has a demonstrated record of providing excellent leadership and direction in risk and crises management. We're thrilled to have him in his new role. So welcome aboard, Andrew, as the new ED of Safety and Security. And if you're there, wave so that the board can see you as well. It's great. So congratulations and welcome to both of you. So turning now to COVID-19. Board President Simmons, I really wish that I had better news to provide you. But in January, it's been extremely impactful with the pandemic across the nation, here in Oregon, and at TriMet. That's due in part to employees reporting positive COVID tests, needing to quarantine, and then kids returning to remote learning in many school districts. We've had employees report more positive tests this month than any other time during the pandemic. We are well over 150 COVID positive tests for just the month of January. However, though, we are grateful that the majority of the cases are not as severe as they may have been earlier in the pandemic and before vaccines were available. I will tell you that I'm encouraged that among our employees who've experienced symptoms so far this month, we've learned of no hospitalizations at this time here. We continue to encourage employees to get fully vaccinated against COVID-19, including a booster shot if they are eligible, really to help protect themselves and those around them. As you are likely to be aware of, the Supreme Court struck down the Biden administration's vaccinate or test requirement for large employers. In reviewing the brief, TriMet's legal team found that the courts decided that the vaccine mandate was prohibited because it exceeded the scope of the federal OSHA's regulatory authority. However, they said it remains possible that other local, state, and federal authorities could create their own mandates. It's also legal for employers like TriMet to mandate vaccines or either tests for employees, though that is not the step that we have chosen at this time here. Our virus leadership team is considering and discussing options with stakeholders, including Oregon OSHA, and then we'll report back with new developments as we proceed forward. So moving on to ridership for December of 2020. In December, TriMet provided just under 4 million rides on buses, Max, West, and Lyft. Ridership was about 51% of where it was in December of 2019 prior to the COVID pandemic, and 26% higher than December of last year. So this is welcome news for us as we continue to journey forward in 2022. Members of the board, thank you. Last year, you took a large step to create a lasting tribute to Rosa Parks. Her refusal to relinquish her seat on a public bus caused the 1955-56 Montgomery bus boycott in Alabama, which became the spark that ignited the civil rights movement. On Friday, February 4th, the day that would have been Rosa Parks' 109th birthday, no fares will be collected on TriMet buses or trains. Our partners at C-Tran and Portland Streetcar are joining us in this second observance, just as they did with the first one. They've indicated that they plan to continue to set aside Rosa Parks Day every year, just as TriMet will. All of this is thanks to you, the board, all of you. And also would like to especially recognize Director Edwards for his leadership on this very important observance. So thank you, board. Thank you, Director Edwards, for your leadership. I would like to provide you a brief update on our temporary service reduction that began on January 10th. The reduction of 10% of service better matches our service levels with the available operators that we have currently. We will work to resolve our severe staffing shortage. the number of canceled buses canceled has gone down since the service reduction went in place. However, given the surge in COVID-19 this month, there have been some days where we still are missing some bus and max trips. Those absences don't necessarily mean that an operator is sick. They could be quarantining. They could be staying at home with a child that's moving to digital learning, or dealing with another type of illness, the flu or anything else, and any other type of personal matter. But we're working on that. On the hiring front, we're seeing more applications come in since announcing our $2,500 hiring bonus for new operators. Interest has picked up from some breaks that we saw over the holidays, but putting in an application is just the first step in the process. And we're finding that beyond that part, we are dealing with a very challenging hiring environment. So we're continuing our recruitment efforts and expanding our targeted areas to include more communities, both in Oregon and out of Oregon, and really exploring some additional opportunities as well, more incentives. So we'll follow back up with you as we continue to develop here. I want to take a moment to talk about our electronic fare system, our HOP Fast Pass. HOP will turn 5 years old this year, and the program is making some impressive milestones. On December 22nd, 2021, the HOP system recorded its 100th millionth tap. Other milestones recently reached by HOP program included nearly 1.7 million unique HOP cards issued. Also, more than 500,000 accounts registered at myhopcard.com. Although everyone who rides automatically gets to use our HOP money-saving fare capping features with the account registration that offers additional benefits, including lost cards protection and features like auto reload. So that's the best way to take advantage of everything HOP has to offer. And we're just happy to see so many people just doing that. I heard the cat is already out of the bag on my final update this morning. The new and improved TriMet.org website is off and running with exciting new features like real-time location information for buses and trains at your fingertips and right before your eyes. So TriMet Manager of Digital Communications, Dave Whipple, he's here to give us a peek inside the website and some insights from week 1. Dave, can I call on you?
Yes, thank you, Sam. And good morning, board. Thank you, Director Way, for teasing this news earlier in your update. I appreciate it. And as Sam mentioned, this new website, which we launched last week, represents both a better technology and better design packaged up. And we believe that combination is really going to help us serve customers better and help support ridership recovery efforts as well. So this morning, I just wanted to share some of the highlights of the new site and how riders and the agency stand to benefit. So next slide, please. First, I just want to mention our design process is centered around users. So as such, we are mindful of solving for our customers' top tasks. And by that, I mean, what do most people come to our site to do? Well, we know that the vast majority of them, 95% or more, come for our trip tools, as represented here. And nearly 3/4 of that website traffic is people accessing TriMet.org on their phones. So our design and our development priorities really have been prioritized and focused accordingly. And that'll be reflected in what you see on TriMet.org. Next slide, please. That focus is reflected here on the homepage as it looks on a desktop or laptop. It is now a full screen interactive map, and we are strongly focused on providing easy access to those trip tools. We also show real-time locations of buses and trains on the map. And on a phone, it functions much like a smartphone app. And these are all really major changes that a long time in the making that are based on customer feedback. But we've also retained the familiar lineup of those tools and labels and functions that customers are expecting and familiar with transit tracker, trip planner, routes, service alerts, maps and schedules, and a prominent search box at the top that lets you get next arrivals with a stop ID or enter any stop name or address or name of a business. Next slide, please. And to quickly summarize, what are the most notable changes with this release? As I mentioned, you can see buses and trains near you, and particularly easy if you enable location access on your phone. You see the vehicles moving around on the map, and you can even look ahead to see where any vehicle is going, which is particularly useful if there's multiple vehicles going a similar direction and you could take more than one. You can save your favorites, favorite lines and stops. They show up at the top of the list for easy access next time. Next slide, please. And you can plan multimodal trips. This lets you plan a trip that includes an e-scooter, an Uber, or a Biketown bike share. The search tool I mentioned is improved. You can now search for pretty much any business name, much like Google. And my personal favorite, you can add a shortcut icon to your home screen on your phone so that it opens in full screen mode and acts much more like an app. That's it. I'll just conclude by mentioning that the project team right now is continuing to make adjustments and improvements and fixes in the days and weeks ahead and based on customer feedback. And overall, we're really excited to have this new tool in our toolkit to help the agency better serve riders and attract new ones. Thank you.
Dave, congratulations to you and your team here. Also want to say congratulations to Marjan Savita and Ethan Benettan and the IT division for coming together with you and really moving us forward here over these last 6 months. Very thankful and really appreciate it with that. So thank you. Dave, if you can hang around, once I conclude, if the board have questions, they'll be able to ask, but I have 2 or 3 points that I need to make here very quickly. Thank you. Board members, I appreciate Serenity Ebert's comments this morning. Also, I appreciate Kathy's comments that she made this morning here. I've just been brought up to speed just yesterday about the situation as the general manager. And I've asked staff to get together and provide some input to me so that I could take a look at it. I will be able to tell you what I have in front of me a bit about Serenity asked for approval to bring our trike on board our transit vehicles, specifically MAX and 2017, as she stated. At that time, Serenity was able to use a walker, wheelchair, or scooter to access transit, but she preferred to use her trike. So we evaluated, TriMet evaluated the accessibility in March of 2019. And we even had her meet with our ADA personnel at one of the locations to bring it on and do an assessment during that time frame. So at that time, back in March of 2019, staff determined that the trike was too big and it could not readily fit within a designated bike area on MAX, and it really presented a safety hazard for many things that was identified there. So at that time, the request was denied because of safety concerns and that she was able to still access the system with mobility devices. But let me tell you what I've done. I've asked staff to reach out to Serenity. So she's going to be getting a phone call here to see if a reevaluation is necessary, as the situation to me sounds like it might have changed here. So we're going to be reaching out to her very, very quickly and soon, and I'll keep all of you apprised on what take place there. Regarding the Broadway cab situation, I know that Eileen Collins is on the phone with us, and I would like to bring her in to address the situation. Eileen?
Good morning. Thank you, Sam, and thank you, directors, for allowing me to be here this morning. It is unfortunate that Mr. Walker has had some latency in some late night trips that he's received through Broadway Cabs, specifically on their wheelchair accessible fleet. It's an issue that we have had Broadway Cab on a cure notice regarding, and much like us, they have had considerable challenges staffing, given that their operators are independent contractors and they can't specify when or how those folks work. So we've been working really diligently with TransDev, our transportation contractor, to pull as many trips that were historically offered on cab back to our bus service, back to dedicated capacity, back to when we know operators are working and we can confirm that there are no customers left in the community who are unsafe. So while we continue to work with Broadway Cab to increase their operator numbers, we have transitioned Mr. Walker to bus service to ensure that he is safe in the community. I've communicated that with him, and I've been working with him on how that can work most effectively for him. And he understands the situation that we're in, and he's satisfied with the solution that we've come up with. But ultimately, we still need to continue working with Broadway to increase those wheelchair accessible vehicle numbers, and we will continue to move in that direction.
Thank you, Eileen. President Simmons, my last point I want to say is that we are in a world of unprecedented times. We're charting new waters, new territories. This pandemic is here with us, and there is no such thing as normal. There's always a new normal that we're dealing with. But I want to tell you and the board that we have a world-class group of employees that have been here and stuck it through with us and providing service to our public. And I just want to thank all of our frontline, our administrative employees, and our support employees that we are extremely grateful for you during this time here. Please push forward with us. And I just want to thank you for your service. With that, President Simmons and Board of Directors, that concludes my report this morning.
Before we check to see if there are any comments or questions from the board members, one of the questions I had for you, General Manager DeSue, has to do with the retrofitting that we're doing, the restoration on some of our MAX trains. I'm sensitive to, we're buying some new light rail. We're also modifying existing light rail to expand their life and service life. And, are we looking at ways that we can accommodate other kinds of mobility devices within those vehicles? Because I've traveled in other places as well, and it could be that our initial evolution, it didn't provide for it, but we should be really thinking about it as we acquire new and retrofit existing.
Well, I appreciate the question and thank you for that. As you know, we have 26 new Type 6s that are coming out, that is coming out here in 2024. So there'll be something that we will definitely have a conversation with the manufacturer with. I can't make any promises about anything there, but it will be top of the list that we will talk with them.
Okay, thank you. So other board members, do you have any questions or comments for the general manager?
President Simmons, I am not seeing any hands raised at the moment.
Okay. Thank you so very much, General Manager DeSue. Very informative update. So let's move on to the consent agenda. And for those public viewers, the items appearing on the consent agenda are considered routine and may be approved by the board in one blanket motion. And this morning, our consent agenda includes the minutes from our December 15th, 2021 meeting and a resolution authorizing ordinances to be read in title only. So is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items?
This is Thomas Kim. I move to approve the consent agenda items.
Thank you, Thomas. And I tend to be very informal. So, and is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Director Gonzalez. So does anyone wish to make a comment before we vote? Hearing none, I'm going to ask for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Okay, we're going to go into our resolutions. We have 3 resolutions today. And the first resolution this morning is Resolution 22-01-01. And it's authorizing a contract with David Evans and Associates for design and engineering services for the Hollywood Transit Center Community and Transit Infrastructure Investment Project. Mr. General Manager, your comments. General Manager Dessou, we're not hearing you.
Sorry about that. I did not unmute myself. All right. Good morning, President Simmons and members of the board. The purpose of this first resolution before you is to select a contractor for design and engineering services for the transit and community focused improvements at the Hollywood Transit Center. We are working with Bridge Housing to redevelop a portion of the site into a 200-unit affordable housing complex. This contract would cover TriMet's portion of the Hollywood Transit Center project. The scope includes a new bus stop configuration, a light rail substation, better signage, signals, pedestrian bridge access, and a public courtyard. For this award, TriMet issued a request for proposal, and a source evaluation committee selected David Evans as the highest qualified proposal. David Evans' workforce is 32% female and 17% minority, and they plan to use certified firms in specialized fields such as urban design and electrical engineering for approximately half of the work. The contract is for $3.1 million, and the total is included in the fiscal year 22 operating budget for engineering, construction, and planning. Staff considers David Evans well qualified to perform this work, and I'll ask for your approval.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
This is Director Kim. I move to approve.
Thank you, Director Kim. Is there a second?
Second, this is Lori.
Thank you, Director Irish Bauman. It's been moved and seconded. Does anyone wish to make a comment before we vote? And if so, raise your hand and Kimberly will call on you.
President Simmons, I see Director Gonzalez's hand raised.
Great, Director Gonzalez.
Thank you. And this is just a comment regarding responsiveness. I see we have 2 vendors listed here for this proposal. And a general comment to the board, I think we want to be cognizant of when we have responsiveness for bids of this nature. It's a sizable contract. It's great work. And I see 2 bids listed here. So I just want to, while I have no concerns about this proposal or the proposers, I want to point out the market that we're in when things like this get the responsiveness this one is getting.
Thank you. Yes, it's important that we make sure that we offer the opportunity to all responsive people and not always select the same agency. Are there any other hands raised, Kimberly?
No, not at this time.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded. I'm going to call for the vote then. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Our second resolution today is Resolution 22-01-02 to authorize a lease with Madison-OFC 1 Main Place LLC for administrative office space at 101 Southwest Main Street in Portland. Mr. General Manager.
Thank you, President Simmons. Members of the board, this next resolution came before you. Requests authorization of a lease for space for TriMet's administrative offices. The agency's 10-year lease at Harrison Square expires in June of next year. As we had reached capacity at Harrison Square and previously at Center Street, there's been extensive study conducted agency-wide to fully assess TriMet's needs regarding capacity and functionality for the administrative section of TriMet. The new building will house TriMet's administrative headquarters and was selected basically largely on 4 criteria. That is easy access by transit. The second is located at or near a vibrant neighborhood. The third is potentially be linked to transit-oriented development. And the last is seismically resilient. TriMet considered 27 locations before selecting one main place in downtown Portland. In addition to aligning closely with the search criteria, the property also presented TriMet with significant economic benefits, both in the current period and the projected post-pandemic climates. The lease would also reserve TriMet's space in downtown Portland, the historic heart of our region that we support and want to help build and return it to vibrancy. The lease is for a term of 11 years and 2 months at a total cost of approximately $33 million. Annual payments will be included in TriMet's zero-based budget for lease facilities, especially in light of keeping timelines as well as taking advantage of favorable market conditions. I ask for your approval.
Thank you. And it should also be noted that the board has had an opportunity to review the decision-making process at length. And so is there a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Thank you, Director Gonzalez. Is there a second?
I second Director Kim.
Thank you, Director Kim. It's been moved and seconded. Does anyone wish to make a comment before we vote?
This is Director Kim. I think we're getting a heck of a deal. Congratulations to the real estate team and all of the folks who had their hands on this. I'm glad we're getting great value in utilizing our resources well, but at the same time, getting all of our staff their well-deserved, nice space that will allow for better productivity.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. Yes. Does anyone wish else to make a comment?
Director Bauman has her hand raised.
Director Bauman?
Thank you. Yes, I want to echo that this is a very favorable lease from a financial standpoint, but I also want to point out that it's very encouraging that TriMet is committing to staying in downtown Portland and contributing to the revitalization of downtown. So for that reason, I strongly support this move.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yes, Director Way has her hand raised.
Director Way?
Thank you. I'm finally figuring out the raising hand feature. I will just tack on to what all the directors have already shared and just say that I think this is a great move, literally, and also really excited about the community engagement and various events with community and different organizations that will be able to continue to do in this space. Of course, after the pandemic subsides a little bit. So I'm excited to sort of just see the different utilization and features of this space to benefit not only our employees, of course, but also community members who come to our agency for lots of different meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Way. Director Gonzalez, did you have a comment?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, President Simmons. I simply wanted to express my gratitude to the team that explored these possibilities, that went out and looked for spaces and did the tough work of analyzing the pros and cons of where to sign the next lease. So thanks a lot for your due diligence and doing the hard work to bring this this possibility forward. And I want to say thanks to the Harrison Square Group for providing us the space that we have had. I'm going to miss navigating some of that building, but I'm sure that with new moves and new opportunities come some fresh changes. So I look forward to seeing how the new space gets designed and occupied, and and how it helps shape the way TriMet works together. So thanks a lot to everyone that did this work, and well, kudos to all of those for the work that still is coming ahead. There's a lot that's going to happen between now and the move.
Thank you. Any further comments?
No additional comments at this time.
So we're going to make the vote then. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? The motion carries. So our last resolution today is Resolution 22-01-03, and it's authorizing a contract with the Ecology DBA NRC Environmental for storm and wastewater disposal services. That's a mouthful. Anyway, Mr. General Manager.
Thanks, President Simmons, members of the board. The purpose of this final resolution before you today is to authorize a contract to cover storm and wastewater removal and disposal services at our garages, our transit center, park and rides, and other properties. As you are all aware, TriMet performs vehicle washing and other maintenance activities that require specific removal procedures. In addition to our facilities, park and rides, and transit centers, they have special catch basins and filtering systems with specialized environmental requirements. TriMet issued an invitation to bid for a new solicitation for these services based on the expansion of TriMet transit system, as well as stricter environmental permit requirements, which have increased demand for TriMet. NRC was identified as the lowest responsible bidder. The proposed contract is for a 5-year term at a total amount of $1.3 million. The services are included in the Safety and Security Division operating budget. Also, I should highlight NRC's bid for coming in nearly 39% lower than the closest competitor. This was possible because NRC recently completed an upgrade to its own wastewater treatment plant. And by keeping the cost involved internal, the company was able to pass on significant savings to TriMet. So NRC's workforce is 14.5% female and nearly 42% minority. The firm has identified 6 small certified firms to perform a portion of the work should subcontracting opportunities arrive. I would like to recommend your approval.
Thank you, General Manager. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Thank you, Director Gonzalez. And is there a second?
Yes, second by Director Lewis.
Thank you, Director Lewis. It's been moved and seconded. Does anyone wish to make any comments before we vote?
Director Simmons, I am not seeing any hands raised at this time.
Okay. I'm going to then ask for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? Motion carries. So we're now going to go into our ordinances, and that we had our first reading in December. And the first ordinance is a second reading on Ordinance 364 regarding the TriMet Code. And I'm going to ask the General Counsel, Shelley Devine, to read the ordinance by title only.
Thank you, Director Simmons. Ordinance number 364 of the Tri-County Metropolitan Transportation District of Oregon, amending chapters 28 and 29 of the TriMet Code to limit when law enforcement may conduct fair inspections, create a new offense regarding employee assaults, allow TriMet personnel to address non-criminal violations, and update terminology. This is the second reading.
Thank you. Mr. General Manager, following our first reading and the public hearing in December, is there anything you'd like to add to the record?
Absolutely, President Simmons and the board. So Ordinance 364 proposes changes to the TriMet Code in support of our ongoing Reimagine public safety effort and other actions that we have taken to ensure a transit system that is safe and welcoming for all. The ordinance makes 4 changes to chapters 28 and 29 of the code to bring it in line with the standards of behavior and conduct that we expect on our transit system. The resolution clarifies the roles and responsibilities of those who use or work on our transit system. This includes law enforcement officers, fare inspectors, and other TriMet employees, riders, and even me as a general manager. Under this ordinance, among the changes, the general manager would be able to issue long-term exclusions to people who spit on our employees or use similar offensive behavior against our frontline employees. And I want to assure our operators, our supervisors, and our security staff, and then other frontline employees who work in the field, that if this ordinance is adopted by the board today, I fully, as a general manager, intend to use the authority it grants me. Thank you, President Simmons.
Thank you, General Manager DeSue. I will now pose the question to the board. Are there any comments or further discussion regarding ordinance 364?
There are no hands raised.
Okay, I will ask the General Counsel, Shelley Devine, to hold the roll call.
Thank you, President Simmons. I'll start with Director Bauman,
Yes.
Director Edwards,
Yes.
Director Gonzalez,
I vote aye.
Director Lewis,
Yes.
Director Kim,
Yes, from me.
Director Way,
Yes.
and Director Simmons.
Yes.
Ordinance 364 passes unanimously.
Thank you. The ordinance is now adopted. So now we're going to go on to the second reading of ordinance 365, also regarding TriMet code, but more procedural in nature. I'll ask General Counsel Shelley Devine to read the ordinance by title only.
Thank you. President Simmons, Ordinance 365 of the Tri-County Metropolitan Transportation District of Oregon, amending Chapter 14 of the TriMet Code to revise the definition of net earnings from self-employment. This is the second reading.
Thank you. Mr. General Manager, following the first reading of this ordinance and public hearing in December, do you wish to make any other comments for the record?
I do, President Simmons and board. As you mentioned, this is procedural, an annual housekeeping item. It reconnects TriMet code to the federal tax code, providing clarity for taxpayers and the IRS. I ask for your approval.
Thank you. Do any board members have comments or further discussion regarding ordinance 365?
There are no hands raised.
Okay, I will then ask General Counsel Shelley Devine to hold the roll call vote.
Thank you again, President Simmons. I will start again with Director Bauman,
Yes.
Director Edwards,
Yes.
Director Lewis,
Yes.
Director Gonzalez,
Yes.
Director Kim,
Yes.
Director Way,
Yes.
and Director Simmons.
Yes.
Ordinance 365 passes unanimously.
Thank you. If there's no other business to come before the board, then I'm going to adjourn the meeting. And the next regular scheduled meeting of the board listed in the written material was February 24th, but it's actually Wednesday, February 23rd. And it will again be virtual, although for the board members, we're looking to have an in-person meeting potentially in March, provided things improve in terms of the COVID types of restrictions and things. We've been going for about an hour and a half, and we do have a briefing that will take some time. And does anyone wish to have a 5-minute break?
I do. Yes.
Okay.
Me too.
So it is right now 10:25. So let's get back together at 10:30.
Here's what I found. Just a reminder to everyone to mute your mics. Thank you.
soon as I see more people back, we will begin. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Today we're having our first board briefing of the new year, and it's an update on TriMet's business plan. And this is really for the community that may also still be observing, because the board is aware that the business plan is the agency's strategic plan for meeting the expectations of our riders and our community, and also to help the agency better define its goals, identify whether the agency is making progress with measures and targets, and also to define its strategic efforts with the key strategic actions. So every year, the 5-year plan is updated to keep us focused on connecting people with valued mobility options that are safe, convenient, reliable, accessible, and welcoming to all. So considerable work has been underway to update the plan, and Alan Lato, the Director of Business Planning and Asset Management, is here with us today to bring before us a working draft of that update and also to get any feedback from the board. So Director Lehu, we welcome you.
Thank you very much, President Simmons, and directors. Happy to speak with you today and share our progress on the business plan. I think you did the introduction. You said just about everything that could be said, but just to reiterate, especially for those who haven't been through the cycle before, the business plan is a 5-year strategic plan that lays out those strategic actions that the general manager, the executive team, the staff, with direction from the board, believe we need to take on and tackle to make progress. And what we typically try to do is actually have a draft in January and a final in March, so that we are just ahead of the budget, because I think, as you know, you will see the draft proposed in March and the final in May. We are just a little bit off. We are sharing the sort of strategic first parts of the plan with you and looking for some feedback from all of you at this meeting. And then at the next meeting in February, I will be bringing the draft business plan for your review and comment. So what you had in your board packet, starting, if you're looking at the electronic version on page 61, was just some excerpts from the current draft of the business plan that lay out the sort of fundamental assumptions and background and identify strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and constraints, and identify strategic priorities. And this helps set the stage for our final crafting of key strategic priorities and looking at how we implement our goals and objectives for the year. So what I intend to do is just briefly talk through these pages, just hit the highlights. I'm certainly not going to read them to you. And then ask for your, I'll probably go through the whole thing and then ask for your feedback on, do you feel we've hit the right spots? Are there any major issues that you feel we are not addressing with these, which set up, again, our ability to look into key strategic actions and our goals and objectives with more detail. And I'm happy to take questions at any time, but I'll just go ahead and dive in now. You can see, I think, on the screen, the first of the pages, and this is the description of our purpose, where if you sort of think about what TriMet is doing. We're providing transit service, we're providing mobility. What are the reasons we do that? What are the fundamental core benefits that we are providing? And that is supporting our economy and providing equitable opportunity, helping to ease congestion and give people other options, providing mobility for those with fewer options. If you're too young to drive, or if there are other things that get in the way of you being able to or wanting to drive, we need to provide mobility for so many people who don't want to have to drive, especially in their car by themselves. Help shape the future of our region with our service and our projects, and to reduce emissions and support environmental sustainability. So all of those things are positive benefits that we bring to the region and help inform how we think about our goals and objectives and our vision, mission, values. So if Brent, you could go to the next page. This is for all of you who have even flipping open the business plan, you're likely to have seen this already. This is up in all of our conference rooms. It's the statement of our vision, mission, values, which President Simmons quoted from part of it just in introducing this, with our mission to connect people with valued mobility options that are safe, convenient, reliable, accessible, and welcoming for all. And then our 12 business goals, and a minor change this year. We've gone ahead and numbered the business goals. We had steered away from doing that for fear of giving the impression that there was a single goal that was more important than every other goal. And that's not really the case, but numbering them helps us understand which one we're talking about, and just makes it easier for us to focus. If you could switch to the next page then. So this is the first of the 2 pages of our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and constraints. And we've broken this down, as many organizations do, to understand, well, what do we need to be looking at? And there are, especially in a time like now with the pandemic, there are plenty of challenges, but there are also opportunities, and we need to look at open-eyed at our strengths and weaknesses. They're stated here, but if we think about, or I'll just mention a few of those, a mission-driven work, and our employees who really care about what happens and really believe in our ability and our need to serve our communities and all of our customers and the region as a whole. You heard the example of the Hop Fast Pass, the high adoption rate and high usage of that. And we're getting support from our federal and state leadership. On the weaknesses, we're still working on the consistency of the culture of safety across the entire agency. There are, of course, economic impacts, as you just heard, from the pandemic and from the reduced ridership and fares, that are things that we need to work through. And then if you go to the next page, our opportunities and constraints. There is still strong public and jurisdictional support for public transit and for more. It's a great thing and a terrible thing for people to be asking for so much more of us, because we want to do everything we can and we only have so many resources. But the fact that there is support for it, and you see it in tangible evidence of things like bus-only lanes going into streets where we have problems where our customers are being held up by traffic. And the ability to look at other opportunities to improve transit service and expand our accessibility and connections, and things like the advances in clean fuel technology that we're trying to take advantage of. And then the challenges, and the biggest one is the ridership, the reduced ridership that's come from the pandemic and the impacts of that. But there are others in terms of things like traffic is almost back to where it was. So we're seeing those congestion impacts on bus travel times, which our customers experience as delay and uncertainty in all of their trips. And looking at the other impacts from outside that we need to work through. including the same things that everybody else is working through, like the worldwide supply chain and human resource challenges. If we could go to the next page then. And this, I'm sorry, something happened in the formatting. The heading is missing, but this is the premises or the assumptions that go into the planning for the business plan. And it makes assumptions that our mission, vision, values are going to continue, and that a culture of safety being paramount is going to continue, and that we need to focus in on equity. But in addition, also, that growth will continue. People continue to move to Portland, and we need to respond. That the economy, though our picture is not perfect over time, we make some assumptions about the economy recovering and growing over time, and continuing to do things like maintaining our bond rating, which is essential for us to be able to make investments in the future. That we will continue to respond to changing demographics in terms of service, that we need to work on reducing carbon emissions, and all the other statements that you see there. Brent, if you could move to I think the last one, the strategic priorities. So this is something that we definitely update. The strategy map, for example, the pyramid, we've made a couple of tweaks in wording, but that really stays stable year after year. This is the 6th iteration of doing a business plan, and making sure that we are aligned. And this is perhaps more than ever a firmer attempt to really hone in on a relatively small number of strategic priorities and allow that to focus us. And we've taken this from previous discussions with the board. We've taken this from some input from President Simmons and Director Irish Bauman in talking with them. And in a pretty in-depth discussion with our executive team and with other TriMet employees, and paying real attention to what we're hearing from the public in engagement and from our stakeholders as well. And so these are the strategic priorities, the things we really need to really focus in on this year and the next few years. That is ridership. As you heard, we're about half down from where we were. We don't expect to recapture every single rider that we had from before. But we do expect to attract more of them back. And then we need to attract new riders by listening to community and learning those new travel patterns. Financial stewardship and capacity is essential in a time like this when things are so unstable. Employees and the employee experience. It can't be said enough that TriMet is a team, and it's essential that we find ways to make sure that everybody at TriMet feels like they are truly part of the team and is really able to bring their whole selves to work and contribute. And then community and partnerships. We don't have complete control over anything in the region. We have to work through our partnerships and with the community to work towards that. And then the two overarching priorities and values of safety, which touch on all the others, and equity, which touch on all the others. And so these are our strategic priorities. We'll be using these as touchstones to look at, are we putting together key strategic actions that really guide us and make sense in the business plan as we move forward. And with that, I've gone through the materials that you see here. I'm happy to take any comments or questions or advice or directions on this.
President Simmons, I'm not seeing any hands raised at this time. Oh, actually, I apologize. Director Bauman has just raised her hand.
Yes, thank you. I'll reinforce what Alan mentioned, which is that for quite some time, President Simmons and I have been the kind of board committee that consults with him on the business plan, and we appreciate the tremendous amount of work that goes into this project. And certainly I've said that, you know, what makes the business plan last year and this year different from previous years is the tremendous impact of COVID. So thank you for focusing on that. The impact on ridership in particular as really kind of shaking up how we have to think about our priorities going forward. But anyway, I just wanted to say I appreciate all the good work, and so far it looks terrific to me.
Thank you very much.
Alan, remind me, have we received an update on where we are with, as the full board, where we are with the accomplishments from last year?
Not fully. That will be incorporated into the draft next month. You'll see a whole series of statements of progress that we've made, and it's a pretty impressive list. So I'm going to be excited to share it with all of you.
Good. Thank you. I know that for the board, you know, this material came close to the meeting, and you may not have had an opportunity to look at this presentation as closely as you could if you'd received it earlier. That's not a criticism, Alan. But I know I always go back online is the business plan, the current business plan. And if you don't have comments or feedback for Alan today, you can definitely email him your comments between now and the February board meeting so that he can factor that into the development of the revisions that are going to be presented to us. It's quite a detailed document, and it requires quite a bit of thought and time. But I remember prior to when the agency didn't have a business plan, and it's just such an important document, as you can well appreciate, in terms of bringing the agency totally together, understanding the total scope of the work that we need to do and what the priorities are for the full agency, not just by department to department. So I want to show my appreciation, Alan, to you and all of the folks that contribute to the development of this document. I just appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I certainly you know, help organize this and end up being the lead author, but it is a labor of many people at TriMet. There are you know, not just the executive team, but many staff across the agency, including those who are engaging with the community to make sure that we are reflecting the needs as well as we can.
So I don't want to preclude anyone from making any additional comments or feedback on this, but if there aren't any, we can adjourn and look forward to seeing the full revised with the accomplishments in February. Right, Alan?
Absolutely. And I'll just reinforce what you said. I'm happy to take comments, questions. I'm happy to talk through any piece of it, any thoughts via email or phone call, whatever you prefer.
Director Gonzalez, your mic is on. Do you wish to make a statement?
Yes, thank you. I even got around to raising the hand eventually. I simply wanted to acknowledge that so much of this work in previous updates has included a strategy conversation, and I didn't know if that's still the intent moving forward, seeing that we do have new board members, to combine annual updates with a moment to sit back and reflect on the strategy itself. Is that in the docket for the year?
Well, essentially the strategy or the kinds of input that we're often able to do at the fall meeting, I'm looking for those kinds of comments now. We will be returning to our normal schedule for next year, I believe, so that in the fall we'll have that strategic conversation with the board. It just got precluded by pressure of so many other things as well this fall. But now is a great time to bring up any issues or content along that line.
Thank you for clearing that up. I encourage our board members, especially those who have joined us more recently, to take a look at this document and to reflect on how it helps answer the question for you, where TriMet is trying to go eventually. This is in part helping us set our North Star for what kind of agency we want to become. And when push comes to shove and we have a lot of things driving our attention and our resource, what are the things we go back to ensure that we are going to the right place? So I encourage those folks on the board to look at this and ask themselves that question. This is a good time to bring some feedback forward. And I do look forward to us being able to interact in a room, in a live format, over some of these subjects. Thanks so much, Alan, for the update.
Thank you, Director Gonzalez. I really look forward to being all together and having to have that conversation as well. But happy to take those kinds of thoughts at any point. And I should probably just reiterate, we will have the draft next month, which includes the key strategic actions. But during the month of March, we release it to all of you, of course, but to all of TriMet employees and kind of do my best to make sure everybody's aware and has time to look at it, and to the public as well. And we look for comments during the month of March and make sometimes substantial changes so that we are able to incorporate those in the final in April. So we're very deliberate about making sure that we can incorporate additional thoughts after people get to see the draft intact. I might, if I could, add one other piece of content, but only after we're done with the business plan piece.
I'm not seeing any hands raised. So why don't we conclude our conversation on the business plan, and Alan, you get to have the closing comments.
Thank you. This is just a little bit more information. I believe it was Director Way mentioned the Afro Village PDX effort to try and recycle one or more light rail vehicles. And I've been involved in that, and we've been, a number of different TriMet employees have worked with them. One of the things, if you are not already aware, they built a plywood replica of a light rail vehicle as part of sort of visibility of the effort that is now a dining shelter outside of a restaurant in Northwest Portland called Everybody Eats PDX. So at, I believe it's Northwest 10th and Davis, if you walk by there or drive by there, you will see a dining shelter that literally looks like a TriMet vehicle. And they have actual TriMet vehicle chairs in there that we salvaged from our oldest vehicle that is no longer in service. So it's been a fun partnership, and we're really looking forward to their being able to identify a location where they could actually use this.
Wonderful. That's marvelous. Thank you for giving us that additional glimpse into that particular project. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So are there any other comments before we conclude for today? Not seeing any. I wish you all a wonderful day. It's still bright and sunny out for those of you who have access to the outdoors. And please be safe. And I look forward to seeing you maybe in person sometime soon. But until then, this is our only platform for communicating. So thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thanks a lot.